Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Ollie. Welcome to the 10th tutorial in this series of Java for Beginners. In this tutorial, we're going to be going over the for loop and the enhanced for loop. So, first of all, what is the for loop? If you remember from the last tutorial, how we iterated through, I think it was a list of 4 names to print them all out, well, what the for loop will do is it's going to declare a variable within the loop itself, and it's automatically going to iterate it, so we don't need to manually do the whole x++ thing. So first of all, how do we declare a for loop? What is the syntax? Well, first let's create an array. Let's make a string array, and I'm just going to call it names just for ease, and I'm going to just put random names in here. There we go. So now we've got a random list of names. We can now iterate through all of these names and print them out. So I'm going to add a comment here, and I'm going to show you the syntax for a for loop. So much like the while loop, the do while loop, the if statement, all that stuff, it takes a parameter, except it takes 3 different parameters, the for loop. First of all, we have to make a variable, so it takes a variable. If I can spell, there we go. So it first of all takes a variable, and then what it does is it takes a condition, in other words, when to stop, and then it's going to take an increment / decrement. So I'll show you how we can do this now. So we're going to write the word for the for loop, and we then need to declare a variable, and we can declare a variable inside of the parameter here. So I'm going to write int x equals 0. So we're going to declare a variable called x, make it equal to 0. And all 3 of these parameters here, they all have to be entered in. None of them are optional, and they're separated by a semicolon. So it's as if we're starting a new line of code, except all inside the for loop here. So now it takes a condition. In other words, when do you want the for loop to iterate up until? So we're going to say whilst x is less than, and we're going to say names.length. So because what we want to do with this for loop is loop through all of the names and print them out. So as long as x starts at 0, and as long as it's less than the length of the names, we're going to continue to print them out. We're going to then add another semicolon and do the final bit, and that's increment or decrement the value of x. In this case, we want to add 1 to it because we're going to be going from 0 to 1 to 3 to 2 to 3 to print out all 4 of these. And that is our for loop completed. Now all we have to do is add the block using our spiky brackets, like so. And now inside here we can do whatever we want. So system.out.println, and let's just say names, and then put x. So this is going to iterate 4 times, and it's going to print out each of the 4 names, like so. And I'll drag that up. And you can see it's done that successfully. So that's pretty much all I can explain about the for loop. It's just the only thing you're going to need to practice is remembering the syntax to place inside of the for statement itself. But other than that, just practice this for loop here, the syntax, and also experiment around with maybe like incrementing it by 2 or doing some kind of mathematical formula to just do whatever you want to do with it. So I'm going to remove this for now. I remove that. And I'm going to show you now the enhanced for loop. So the for loop we just had was all well and good, but it still was quite a mouthful to type in. We had 3 separate parameters that we all had to type in, and we also had to declare new variables, which we may not want to do. So how do we loop through an entire array simply by putting the name of the array and then giving it a value? Well, we can do this by using the enhanced for loop, and the for statement doesn't look any different. We simply write for again, except the parameter it takes is going to be slightly different. We're going to first declare a variable. So in this case, we're looping through a string array. So we need to have a string variable. I'm just going to call it name. And then we need an array to loop through. And we do this by putting a colon, like so. And then we do the array, so names. And now I'm going to add in a block like this, and I'll explain what this does. So basically, this for loop here is going to loop through each of the values in this array, and at each iteration this string called name is going to become equal to the next value in the names array. So in other words, in the first loop that we do, the name is going to equal Ollie, and then in the next iteration the name will become equal to Alex, and in the next iteration name will become equal to Ellie, and then equal to Jason in the next one. So let's prove this by write system.out.println, and I'm just going to write name, and you'll see that when I hit run it should do exactly the same thing as previously, and there you go, it prints out all the different names. So that's pretty much it for for loops. You can use the same functionalities you do with while loops, so you can use the break statement, and that can be useful if you're simply searching through an array for a name. So for example, if you find the name, then you can just break out of the loop because you don't need to search the rest of them. In the next tutorial, it's going to get really exciting because we're finally going to start learning about object-oriented programming. So definitely stick around for that tutorial, but for the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.